women who are victims of domestic violence. Expenses. Now these are 2011 unaudited numbers, but they're the best I have today. In 2011, we spent $18,299,408 in HAP. HAP stands for Housing Assistance Payments. These are dollars that are actually put in the pockets of landlords for upkeep of their property in any other way they want to use the money. Basically, we provide a lot of money to the community by way of this program. Now, in terms of our admin fee, that's the money that HUD gives us to run the program. And by running the program, I'm talking about staffing our inspectors, staffing our customer service reps, keeping the lights on in the building at 801 North Holtzclaw. Last year, we received approximately $2 million. About midway through the year, actually I think it was in August, we realized we were looking at a 95% proration. And prorations are very interesting in our world because HUD never tells us how much money we're working with until probably around September of the year. So we can go through 9 months, think we're going to get X dollars, and end up getting Y dollars. And the Y comes because HUD will provide a blanket proration on the total dollars that have been calculated that you need to run the program. So this past year, we realized we might be looking at 95% proration, which came to fruition at the end of the year. But Tammy Reeves, who's our director of the program, said, we've got to cut now. So we cut 3 staff positions in mid-August of 11 in order to prepare for that, so we could balance the budget as best as possible by year end. So it's one thing we've learned over the last few years, we've learned how to balance a budget, for sure. I'm kind of a visual person, and I give you this because this is the easiest way for me to understand and explain the HCBP program in a minute. There are 3 parties. First of all, you see at the top the CHA. That's us. Running between the housing authority and the landlord is a contract. And in that contract, we agree for a particular unit to pay a certain amount of HAP, housing assistance payments. Okay? The bottom side of the triangle, you'll see the HCBP participant. We call them participants in the voucher program, they're actually tenants. The participant's relationship with the landlord is your typical landlord-tenant relationship. There is a lease running between those 2 individuals. So the lease can be, the landlord can choose to have security deposit or not. The landlord can choose to have pets or not. That is a contract between those 2 parties. The relationship between the participant and the CHA is one called family obligations. And under that relationship, the tenant is bound to tell us about when their income changes and when their family composition changes. They're bound not to engage in criminal activity while on the program. So as you can see, there are these shifting relationships that happen in this program, and I'm sure there'll be questions later, but that's basically what I want you to consider as we move forward. Okay. HCBP waiting list status. In the fall of 2010, we in no way wanted to do a repeat performance of what had happened several years earlier, where we had hundreds and hundreds of people lined up and knocking over each other. So we decided to implement a lottery. We very civilly collected 5,600 applications for a lottery. It was a simple 1-pager. Based on the amount of dollars we had available for the program, we chose 200 names out of that 5,600. We screened them, we processed them, and they were placed in housing. At that point, we no longer had any available vouchers. We were at full utilization. And that's the nirvana that you want to reach when you're a housing authority. I have to give credit to my staff because this is the first time in a decade that we had reached full utilization of the Chattanooga Housing Authority. And it was the collaborative efforts of all departments. So what does that mean? We still have 5,400 people in the pool. And I have been criticized in the past by using that number as the real number. And I have been reminded often in public forums that that could be people who are in public housing. It could be people who, there could be some overlap. It may not be 5,400 discrete people who are not being subsidized currently, and I want you to know that. All I know is we have a locked box, and when we next have voucher availability, we will be pulling from it. We're keeping the lottery fresh through the end of this year, and if we don't have any additional vouchers, we'll toss it and we'll probably start again because it takes an awful lot of work to work through old applications. Real quickly on screening, We screen for income limits, and I think this is an important point that most people don't know. Behind tab 2 in your document, you will see the dollars for very low and extremely low income. The Housing Choice Voucher Program has a much lower income level standard, and let me just give you an example of what it is. For a family of 4 in the Housing Choice Voucher Program, the family has to make less than $28,900. 75% of our participants on that program have to make less than $17,350. That's a regulatory imposition over these income standards. Compared to public housing, a family of 4 can make $46,250. So you can see there's a real disconnect between the income limits, and a lot of people don't know about that. We screen for that. We screen for eligible immigration status. The head of household and another adult in the household have to have eligible immigration status. Other members don't. The only thing that happens if they don't have eligible immigration status is we prorate the amount of subsidy. We cannot provide subsidy for illegals. Criminal background checks. We conduct our own. The only 2 that are statutorily prohibited are manufacturers of methamphetamine and sex offenders. Otherwise, we follow the guidelines that are in the back page of your booklet. I gave you a 2-page sheet, but we usually look to those guidelines when we're deciding how we're screening folks. I do want to say that our applicants who apply to this program have, obviously, constitutional due process rights. They can appeal any finding of ineligibility for this program, and we do have a formal appeals process. They're allowed to bring in witnesses, they're allowed to be represented by counsel if chosen, present evidence, and all of the due process considerations that should be in place. Many times, if the applicant is able to put out extenuating and mitigating details, they'll be admitted. So it's just a weighing process. Landlord screening. This is the one where we tell the landlord, you can screen as diligently as you want. If you don't, you will bear the fruits of your lack of diligence. We tell the landlords they can check the credit, they can check the landlord history. I mean, I've been a landlord. I look in the back of people's cars to see if they're clean. You can do pretty much anything that's legal to check on these tenants. They can do their own criminal background check. They can do home visits. They can do letters of referral and any other means to test the tenant's suitability as a tenant in their property. Okay, so now we've got the tenant screened, we've got the landlord to screen the tenant. What's next? They found a house. The house is on 2 Maple Street in Chattanooga, Tennessee. That's great. And the landlord is asking for a rent of X. We cannot just give the landlord the rent of X. We must do what we call a rent reasonableness analysis. We maintain a database of market rate units in the community, rental units. We update it every year. We're constantly updating it. And we have to make sure that if the X for the HCVP program property is, I'm going to pick a number, $750, that the geographic location and the amenities are consistent with another like market rental unit that's valued at $750 or thereabouts. So we try and match and make sure we're not artificially inflating the market or artificially deflating the market, if that makes sense. We do this for every unit before it's allowed to come on the program. Okay, next, so let's say we've got the landlord, we've got the tenant, we've got the house, it's reasonable. How much can we pay for it? This is also sometimes the mystery of life. What you've got on this screen is a payment standard. In the second column, you will see our payment standards for 2012. These are based on 100% of the fair market rent as published by HUD last fall. So these standards apply to people who are new to the program in 12, or those who were in the program previously and want to move. If you move subject to our new standards. A payment standard is the maximum amount that the Housing Authority can pay for rent and utilities for any given unit. So the one thing that modifies the payment standard, and it's hard to understand in this setting, is if a participant has income, they can get a unit with a bit higher rent because their income will cover that portion. If we have a zero income person, then they can't. They're pretty much limited to those payment standards in that second column. The 2011 payment standards, which you can see, on the whole, are about 12.5% higher than what you see in the other column, are for those people who were on the program before we implemented these new standards on January 1, 2012. They can stay in a unit. Let's look at the two-bedroom, for example. If we're paying $718 right now for a two-bedroom unit in Chattanooga, dating back to last September, that family can stay there happily for, I think it's a couple of years. There's some formula for how long they can stay. But they don't automatically get dropped. It's only if they move or they're new to the program. Okay, portability is another animal in and of itself. There's always a lot of confusion about, can I move? If you come under our regular Section 8 program, come on the program, we require that you spend 1 year in our jurisdiction, which is Hamilton County. After that 1 year, we call it porting out. You can choose to move anywhere in the United States. You can move to Puerto Rico. And if the housing authority that you're going to chooses to absorb you, it means that they will take you as part of their existing program, and they will release our funding of that program. So they will absorb the person right into the existing program. What we like about that here in Chattanooga is that releases subsidy for us to use. When you head up north to some of the agencies I worked at before, if they're fully utilized, they can't absorb because they don't have any additional money. What happens then is they host the person, we pay the subsidy, we give them 80% of our admin fee to administer the program. I know, it's a little complicated. The exception to this, and I brought up the exception only because we're dealing with Harriet Tubman. We have a program called Special Admissions Program. And whenever we do mod work and we issue vouchers pursuant to that program, those folks are considered special admissions. This limitation on Hamilton County does not apply to special admissions. So in fact, I've walked through the parking lot, the waiting room over at the HCBP office, and a lot of our Tubman folks are going home to family. I've talked to a lady who's going to live on the shores of Alabama, which sounds very nice, Mississippi. But it gives people the opportunity to move now, right now, with some of our Tubman residents back to family and appear happy to do that. Okay.